Forest spirits. The first faint rays of dawn cautiously filtered through the dense, tangled canopy overhead, casting a soft, muted grayish glow across the damp moss-covered undergrowth below. A thick, cold mist clung close to the forest floor, swirling sluggishly around twisted roots and fallen leaves that formed a mottled, uneven carpet. The atmosphere was heavily laden with silence, interrupted only by the distant faint call of a solitary bird, its cry muffled deep within the dense fog. Finn moved carefully along the muddy trail with deliberate, measured steps, each movement carefully made to avoid slipping on the slick, treacherous earth. His worn, battered backpack pressed uncomfortably against his shoulders, adding to his fatigue, and his breath formed visible fog in the cold air, vanishing almost instantly into the crisp, clear atmosphere. Despite the exhaustion clouding his mind, a persistent flicker of instinct stubbornly refused to fade away. It pushed him onward, overriding the overwhelming fatigue threatening to pull him down. Every step was slow, precise, and cautious, his boots squished softly into the muddy ground, leaving faint impressions that quickly blurred into the surrounding gloom. The forest around him remained unnervingly still, with only the gentle rustling of dried leaves stirred by a faint, whispering breeze. The heavy silence pressed against his senses, amplifying every minor sound and making him keenly aware of the thick, palpable quiet. He paused briefly, meticulously scanning his surroundings with cautious, alert eyes. The heavy burden of recent challenging days weighed heavily upon him, yet it was the peculiar and unfamiliar sight on the ground that truly captured his attention. Fresh footprints pressed deeply into the soft, damp earth. These prints were unlike any he had encountered before. They were large, broad, and strangely symmetrical, suggesting they were intentionally placed rather than accidental marks. The toes pointed slightly outward, and the overall shape was too precise, too remarkably perfect to be from any ordinary animal or creature. His fingers trembled slightly before gently brushing aside a stray leaf, revealing more fragments of this mysterious trail. An unsettling, prickling sensation of unease gradually crept over him, but his innate curiosity pushed him to explore further. The footprints diverged from the worn path into denser, thicker thickets, guiding deeper into the lush forest. He knelt down carefully, narrowing his eyes in concentration as he closely examined the impressions. The edges of the prints were sharply defined, and the depths were pronounced almost as though they had been meticulously carved into the soil rather than pressed into it naturally. There were no visible signs of disturbance in the surrounding area, no broken twigs, no displaced leaves or foliage, just these unusual, perfectly symmetrical marks embedded deep into the muddy ground. Suddenly, a faint shuffling sound emerged, freezing him instantly in place with a tense, no-movement stance. The forest around him remained eerily quiet once more, as if holding its breath in anticipation. His attentive ears strained to catch the faintest hint of movement, something that clearly didn't belong to the natural sounds of the wind blowing through the trees. His muscles instinctively tensed, every nerve heightened in alertness. For a brief moment, he thought he caught a flicker of movement among the dense trees, just a fleeting shadow, perhaps an illusion brought on by exhaustion and the early morning haze diffusing through the forest. But then, silence settled again, deep and unbroken, filling the air. He slowly rose to his feet, shoulders tense with anticipation, and cautiously took a step forward along the trail. The temperature seemed to subtly drop, and his senses became even more acute. From afar, a mournful echoing howl resonated through the woods, curling around the sturdy trunks of the trees before fading into the pervasive silence. The sound was unlike any wolf or dog he had ever known, more primal, more eerily haunting. It sent a chilling shiver down his spine, awakening memories of ancient stories he'd heard long ago about mysterious creatures lurking just beyond the edge of human understanding. His eyes flicked quickly toward the direction of the eerie cry. Doubt crept into his mind. Was it a warning signal or merely an animal searching for its morning sustenance? Still, the tone and cadence of that distant call felt markedly different, heavier, more ominous. It carried an unexplainable weight, as if the entire forest responded to something unseen and otherworldly. A sudden gust of wind stirred the leaves beneath his feet, carrying with it a faint earthy aroma, wild and primal, yet strangely familiar to him from long forgotten memories. He inhaled sharply, trying to identify this elusive scent, but the aroma was fleeting, slipping away like wisps of smoke on the breeze. His grip tightened noticeably on the strap of his backpack, grounding himself amid the pervasive uncertainty. The forest around him pressed in closer, with the canopy filtering the weak, diffuse sunlight into shifting patches of shadow and light, creating an almost surreal, mysterious atmosphere. Suddenly, without any prior warning, the solid ground beneath him softened into a swampy marsh-like patch. The mud became increasingly slick, causing his boots to sink slightly into the damp soil, which made him come to a cautious stop. The surrounding forest appeared to hold its breath once more, as if waiting for something to happen. A quick flicker of movement caught his attention, a shadow swiftly darting between the trees, elusive and lightning fast. His heartbeat raced, yet he kept his expression steady, suppressing any instinct to pursue after it. His past experiences warned him that shadows could conceal danger, but this particular sight felt different, more purposeful, more menacing. Carefully, he scanned the immediate area, searching for clues, anything that might shed light on the strange signs or the persistent feeling of being watched. The silence around him grew heavy and oppressive, broken only by the distant echo of a haunting, eerie howl. His skin prickled with unease as he took another tentative, cautious step forward, his eyes fixed intently on the trail ahead. The footprints extended deeper into a thicker, more intensely wooded area, where the darkness seemed to deepen further and the air suddenly grew noticeably colder. Suddenly, out of nowhere, a faint whisper brushed softly past his ear, almost like a light breath or a gentle sigh of wind. He instinctively spun around, his heart pounding anew from surprise, but instead found only the empty, thickly mist-shrouded woods stretching endlessly around him. For a brief moment, he questioned his senses. Perhaps exhaustion or fatigue was clouding his perception and playing tricks on him. Still, the strange feeling persisted, something unseen, intangible, lurking just beyond his line of sight, quietly waiting for the right moment. A cold shiver ran down his spine as he fixed his gaze into the dark shadows, fingers tightening firmly on the strap of his worn pack. The distant howl arose again, louder, clearer, and noticeably more urgent than before. It was no ordinary animal's cry. It sounded primal, almost eerily human in its mournful tone. The haunting call seemed to beckon him, serving as a warning or an invitation to follow its mysterious trail. Whatever the true intent behind it, The cry pulled him deeper into the forest's silent, embracing darkness. He hesitated momentarily, then exhaled slowly, forcing himself to take a hesitant step forward into the unknown. The footprints seemed to call him deeper into the shadows, where darkness stretched endlessly and swayed eerily as if alive and breathing. His hand instinctively reached for the strap of his backpack, gripping it tightly, serving as a sturdy anchor amid the growing uncertainty of the situation. The dense canopy above filtered the scarce sunlight into shifting patches of dull gray and shadowy black, cloaking the narrow path with an ominous gloom. Suddenly, a strong gust of wind swept forcefully through the trees, stirring the leaves and carrying a faint, earthy aroma, something wild, primal, and oddly mesmerizing. He inhaled sharply once more, trying to identify and grasp the mysterious scent, but it dissolved almost instantly into the air. Driven by a cautious mix of hesitation and determined resolve, he continued forward. Each step grew heavier and more laborious, yet hesitation was not an option not after seeing the strange footprints and hearing that distant unsettling cry. The ground beneath him became increasingly soft, transforming into a thick, muddy mire that slowed his progress significantly. The forest seemed to hold its breath, as if patiently awaiting what might occur next. A quick flicker of movement appeared again, this time a shadow slipping silently between the trees, swift and elusive. His heartbeat accelerated subtly, yet he maintained a calm, composed expression, actively suppressing the impulse to pursue what he sensed might be important. His extensive experience warned him not to chase after every fleeting shadow, but intriguing feelings told him that this moment was different, perhaps a crucial sign or warning. He hesitated briefly, carefully scanning the surrounding area for any clues, any subtle hint that could shed light on what was unfolding. The oppressive silence weighed heavily upon him, broken only by the distant mournful howl that echoed through the woods. His eyes flicked ahead, following the faint trail into a denser thicket where the darkness grew thicker, and the chilling cold seeped deeper into his bones. The footprints continued into the shadowy gloom, guiding him further into the mysterious and unpredictable terrain. Suddenly, a soft, barely perceptible sound resembling a whisper or a gentle breath drifted from behind him. He spun around rapidly, heart pounding softly in his chest, but saw only the swirling, misty woods stretching endlessly into the night. For a brief moment, he questioned whether exhaustion was clouding his perception, or if his senses were deceiving him. Nevertheless, the feeling of unease lingered, a sense of an unseen presence watching, waiting silently, persistently present in the dark. A shiver ran down his spine as he gazed into the darkened shadows, fingers tightening around his pack strap in cautious anticipation. The distant cry echoed again, sharper and more compelling, resonating through the silent woods. It was unmistakably a call, maybe a warning, or possibly an invitation to uncover hidden truths. Whatever its nature, it drew him onward, deeper into the mysterious heart of the forest's secrets and concealed wonders. He paused for a brief moment, then exhaled slowly, trying to steady his trembling nerves and resolve. The forest around him seemed to breathe along with him, the swirling mist curling around his sturdy boots and blending with the darkness. The footprints in the soft earth, the distant cry, they had stirred something profound within him. Not merely curiosity, but a subtle awakening, as if a hidden door had been gently nudged open, revealing that the forest's enigmatic secrets were closer than he had ever imagined. In that moment, he realized turning back was no longer an option. The path ahead was cloaked in uncertainty, yet he knew deep within that something awaited him, something powerful enough to finally bring purpose and meaning to his relentless searching soul. With a determined breath, Finn stepped cautiously forward into the shadowed woodland, the haunting echo of that chilling cry reverberating in the stillness around him. Whatever obstacles or surprises awaited him ahead, he deeply sensed that his journey was only just beginning to unfold, and that the forest's long-held secrets would soon be revealed, whether as a source of salvation or as a harbinger of doom. As Finn ventured further into the dense forest, the shadows grew ever longer and more ominous, the narrow trail winding between ancient towering pines that appeared to close in around him like silent guardians. The thick canopy above grew even more dense, permitting only fragmented beams of dawn light to penetrate through the tangled branches, casting flickering patterns on the damp, leaf-littered ground. His breath remained steady but guarded, each step carefully chosen, attentive to every crackle of dry leaves beneath his boots and every loose stone that threatened his footing on the uneven terrain. The rich scent of pine resin intermixed with moist earth filled his nostrils, helping him stay grounded amidst the creeping feeling of unease that intensified with each passing moment. Suddenly, a faint scraping sound against rough bark disrupted the silence. Finn halted immediately, sharpening his senses. His eyes scanned the towering tree trunks lining the trail, narrowing suspiciously. Just a few feet ahead, he noticed a nearly perfect circle carved into the rugged bark of a tall pine tree, standing out eerily against the natural texture of the trunk. The edges appeared incredibly sharp, the freshly made incision resembling it had been carved just moments before. The precision of the geometric lines stood in stark contrast to the coarse, rugged texture of the tree's bark, causing his heartbeat to accelerate slightly. He took a cautious step closer, carefully examining the symbol with a combination of intrigue and suspicion. The symmetry of the carving was almost unsettling, almost unnaturally flawless in its craftsmanship. The surrounding forest seemed to come alive with tense silence as all the usual sounds of rustling leaves and distant bird calls muted, giving the impression that the woods themselves were holding their breath and listening attentively. Finn's mind was racing. Was this a warning signal, a secret message meant for him? Someone or something had intentionally left this mark, but for what exact purpose? His trembling fingers reached forward hesitantly, gently brushing against the freshly cut wood, feeling the coarse roughness beneath his fingertips. A faint metallic aroma mingled with the scent of pine, perhaps originating from the tool used to make the carving or from something more mysterious and obscure. A chill ran down his spine, not because of the cold weather, but due to the profound realization that this symbolic mark carried significance far beyond simple decoration. It was a deliberate symbol, intended to communicate a message or serve as a warning. He scanned the surrounding underbrush and towering canopy, searching intensively for any signs of life or movement. The forest stretched endlessly in all directions, eerily silent aside from the distant rustling sounds of leaves stirred by the breeze. Every noise seemed strangely amplified, and every shadow appeared more vivid and menacing. Behind him, a branch cracked softly under unseen pressure, breaking the pervasive silence. Finn instinctively turned, his eyes darting rapidly to find the source of the noise, yet the woods remained still and unchanged. The shadow or movement he momentarily caught out of the corner of his eye had disappeared without a trace. A quick flicker of motion caught his attention just beyond his immediate line of sight. A dark shape darted swiftly between the trees. His heartbeat accelerated and he spun around sharply, bracing himself for an imminent encounter with a figure or some creature lurking nearby. However, when he directed his gaze straight at the exact spot, only the dense, towering woods greeted him, immovable, quiet, and completely still. The transient shadow had vanished just as suddenly as it had appeared moments before. A mixture of suspicion and cautious hope washed over him, sparking new thoughts. Could this mysterious mark be an indication of another person's presence, perhaps an ally or a fellow seeker on a similar quest? Or was it a warning signal, a subtle test designed to see if he would follow its call? These questions gnawed persistently at his mind, growing more pressing with each passing second. Finn knelt down beside the massive tree, carefully examining the carving with renewed attention. The edges were remarkably smooth and the lines crisp and intentionally precise. No natural phenomenon or element could have created such perfect geometric shapes. He pondered over its real purpose. Was it meant to serve as a guiding sign, to point him toward a specific hidden location, or simply to unsettle and throw him off course? His fingertips traced the smooth circumference of the intricate carving, feeling the cool touch of the freshly cut wood as he tried to decipher any hidden symbols, secrets, or encoded messages embedded within. Suddenly, a brisk gust of wind swept silently through the dense trees, whispering softly through the needle-covered branches and stirring loose bits of debris scattered on the forest floor. The breeze carried a subtle, almost imperceptible sound like a distant whisper, some fragment of a message, unintelligible yet strangely familiar and compelling. Finn's senses became acutely alert. It seemed as if the wind was conveying a message, or perhaps translating a fragment of the forest's own ancient language. His mind raced with questions. Was this merely a coincidence, or was the forest itself trying to communicate some hidden truth? He took a deliberate, calming breath, trying to steady his nerves amidst the mounting uncertainty. The surrounding woods were alive with secrets, silent and waiting patiently to be uncovered. The carved circle beneath his fingertips was more than just a mark. It was a critical fragment of a larger, complex puzzle that intertwined deeply with his ongoing quest. Every new discovery drew him further into the enigma, fueling a fragile yet persistent hope that he was moving in the right direction. However, beneath that burgeoning hope, there lurked an undercurrent of doubt and uncertainty about what secrets the forest truly kept. What if this symbol turned out to be a cleverly concealed trap, a warning indicating imminent danger lurking nearby? His instincts immediately kicked in, urging him to proceed with extreme caution, as if each step could inadvertently lead him deeper into a shadowy, unseen threat. Nevertheless, turning back now seemed like giving up, and surrendering was simply not an option he would consider. As he slowly rose to his feet, suddenly, movement flickered again, a fleeting shadow crossing gracefully behind a cluster of dense trees. He froze momentarily, narrowing his eyes, trying to interpret the subtle motion. The surrounding forest appeared to hold its breath, seemingly waiting patiently for his next move. An almost primal, visceral instinct compelled him to stay hyper-vigilant, to listen more carefully to every sound, trusting his intuition, even when the logical reasoning momentarily faltered. He cast one last cautious glance at the mysterious carved circle on the ground, then decisively turned onto the narrow trail ahead, aware that the mystery surrounding him only deepened with every step he took. The forest's silent, enigmatic message was unmistakable. The path forward was not merely about tracking footprints or avoiding obvious threats, but about carefully deciphering the signs and symbols that nature and perhaps unseen forces were trying to communicate. Signs that could potentially guide him toward the truth or plunge him into a danger he had yet to fully comprehend or imagine. Suddenly, a distant crack or snap reverberated through the quiet forest, louder than before, and seemed more deliberate and purposeful. Finn's eyes darted quickly toward the source of fallen branch, but one that appeared to have been disturbed intentionally, as if someone or something had moved it deliberately. His grip instinctively tightened around the strap of his backpack, sensing that he was no longer alone in the shadows. The silence of the forest had transformed into a tense, almost anticipatory hush, as if the trees and shadows were waiting patiently for him to make the next move. He hesitated momentarily, then subtly shifted his direction slightly, heading cautiously toward the sound's origin. He needed to discover whether this was a sign of actual life, perhaps a clue or a carefully laid trap. As he moved forward, he kept his senses on high alert, every step carefully calculated, every fleeting shadow scrutinized for potential threats. His mind was racing. What could be the meaning of the carving he noticed? Was it a secret message from someone secretly watching him, or simply a random mark left behind by the wind or an animal passing through? The trail wound deeper into the thick woods, and with each careful step, Finn felt the subtle weight of unseen eyes watching him, along with a faint, almost imperceptible pull of invisible threads, guiding his path forward. The forest was no longer just a simple place to walk through. It had transformed into a living, breathing puzzle, and he was beginning to realize that each sign, each quiet whisper of the wind, was part of a much larger, intricate design. By the time he reached a small, secluded clearing, the sun had already dipped lower behind the trees, casting long shadows that stretched and darkened the ground. He paused momentarily, carefully scanning the surroundings. There was no sign of movement or activity now, only the gentle rustling of leaves carried by the breeze. Still, he could sense that the forest had subtly shifted its hidden secrets, now more accessible, yet also more dangerous and unpredictable. His gaze fell on the ground where faint footprints led toward a dense, tangled thicket. The trail appeared recent, and the pattern suggested a hurried, almost frantic departure. Someone had been here, perhaps the same individual who had left the mysterious carving. Finn's mind immediately raced with various possibilities and questions. Was this a sign of an ally who could be trusted, or was it a warning from a foe waiting in the shadows? Could he rely on this new lead to guide him in his pursuit? He knelt once more, carefully examining the strange footprints pressed into the soft earth, then turned his gaze back to the carved circle etched into the ground. The symbols and markings, once seemingly random, began to reveal a pattern. They pointed towards something much greater, something concealed beneath the quiet, still surface of the forest. His understanding grew clearer. The forest itself seemed to be alive with hidden messages, and he was gradually beginning to decipher their meaning. With a renewed sense of determination, Finn pressed forward through the dense foliage, resolved to uncover the truth behind those cryptic symbols and the unseen presence that seemed to be constantly watching him. The shadows stretched long across the landscape, but now they carried significance clues that could ultimately lead him to salvation or steer him toward peril. Though the path remained uncertain and fraught with danger, he knew that each step brought him one stride closer to unraveling the mystery at its core, and perhaps to finding the answers he had been desperately seeking. Finn paused at the edge of a small clearing, his fingers tightening around the strap of his backpack as he fought to steady his quickening breath, feeling the weight of the moment pressing down on him. The midday sun's rays filtered softly through the dense canopy above, casting fractured patterns of light onto the moss-covered forest floor below. Although the scene exuded a tranquil atmosphere, the sense of calm was fragile, subtly overshadowed by an unshakable feeling of tension in the air. A faint rustling in the thick undergrowth suddenly made him freeze in place, his eyes darting anxiously across the shadows, yet all he could see was the gentle swaying of leaves stirred by the breeze. He had come here seeking clarity and peace, but now doubt was gnawing at his confidence, as if something about this place felt distinctly different almost, as if unseen eyes were covertly watching him. Clenching his jaw tightly, he shifted his gaze upward, scanning the treetops attentively for any sign of movement, but the forest remained eerily still, almost unnaturally quiet. His heart was pounding loudly, louder than the rhythmic hum of the insects surrounding him, each beat echoing the suspicion that he was not alone deep within this silent wilderness. The thick silence pressed down on him, heavy and oppressive, yet he stubbornly refused to turn back or retreat. Instead, he lowered himself cautiously onto a fallen log, pressing his palms firmly into the rough textured bark to steady himself against the rising nervousness. Suddenly, his eyes caught a flicker of movement, a luminous white shape, emerging subtly from the shadows at the corner of his vision. His breath caught in his throat, and he tensed instinctively, his eyes widening with alertness, as the figure stepped forward with deliberate, calm intent. It was a wolf, but unlike any he'd encountered before, radiating an almost mystical presence. Its fur was an immaculate snowy white, shimmering beautifully in the filtered sunlight, almost radiating with an ethereal glow that seemed almost supernatural. The creature moved with an effortless flowing grace muscles, softly rippling beneath its sleek coat, projecting an aura of quiet confidence that made it seem as if it belonged entirely and naturally to this ancient forest environment. The wolf's intense gaze was fixed directly on him, piercing, deep, and remarkably intelligent eyes meeting his own, unwavering and calm, as if assessing or understanding something beyond his immediate perception. Finn couldn't help but feel a shiver run down his spine. A primal instinct to retreat clashed with an inexplicable and compelling desire to remain perfectly still. The animal's expression was utterly unreadable, neither menacing nor friendly, merely observant, as if weighing him silently beneath its calm exterior. Its silent presence seemed to press against his senses, amplifying his awareness of every heartbeat and every shallow, hesitant breath. Time seemed to stretch in the stillness as neither of them moved. The wolf's gaze appeared to deepen, as though attempting to peer into some hidden, unspoken part of his very soul. Finn's mind spun with a flood of thoughts, memories of old stories, warnings, and myths about wild animals being unpredictable, even after moments of peaceful silence, and he couldn't shake the feeling that this encounter might hold more significance than it initially appeared. However, he felt no sense of hostility from the creature, only a deep, almost spiritual awareness that this being served as a guardian in some mysterious way, a silent witness to the forest's hidden secrets and ancient stories. Suddenly, without any obvious warning, the wolf tilted its head ever so slightly, a subtle gesture that appeared almost purposeful and deliberate. Its intense eyes lingered on him for a few extra moments, as if carefully weighing, contemplating a crucial decision. In a graceful, fluid movement that seemed almost otherworldly, it took one careful step backward, then another, gradually retreating toward the shadowy edge of the dense woods. The sunlight caught the edges of its thick fur, forming a shimmering halo around the graceful animal as it quietly disappeared behind a tall cluster of pines. Finn observed silently, frozen in place until the last flash of white blended into the darkness of the trees. His chest rose and fell slowly, but a different feeling, a strange sense of reassurance, began to settle within him, as if this encounter had unexpectedly begun to shift something fundamental inside his mind and soul. The oppressive silence that once dominated the forest suddenly dissolved into familiar soothing sounds of rustling leaves and distant bird calls, restoring a fragile sense of normalcy. He exhaled deeply, his fingers trembling as he gently lowered himself onto the damp ground beneath him. His thoughts spiraled with questions. Was it all just a coincidence? A trick of the light, or was this creature something more, perhaps a mysterious messenger or a profound symbol? The glowing wolf's calm, piercing gaze remained fixed on him with unwavering intensity, lingering in his mind and haunting his thoughts, awakening a flicker of curiosity that he thought had long ago faded. A faint but persistent thought gradually surfaced. What if this was a significant sign? An invitation, or maybe a subtle warning? The wolf's silent departure seemed to carry an unspoken message, serving as a reminder that the forest was alive, vigilant, and watching over everything, its countless secrets waiting patiently to be uncovered. He felt a subtle shift deep within himself, a moment of recognition that he was no longer just wandering aimlessly through the woods. The encounter had sparked a new awareness, forging a deeper connection to the wilderness that transcended simple observation. He brushed loose dirt from his palms and surveyed his surroundings, noting how the cool, crisp air now seemed to be charged with a renewed sense of purpose. The forest's silent presence was no longer void of meaning. It had become a dialogue, an unspoken invitation encouraging him to listen more attentively and to understand the subtle messages woven into its quiet hush. The presence of the wolf had gently planted a profound seed of realization in, understanding that the forest's many hidden secrets were not merely concealed, but actively watching him, silently observing, and patiently waiting for him to uncover them. As he slowly stood upright, he kept his gaze fixed on the shifting shadows where the wolf had disappeared from view. His heart felt calmer now, less overwhelmed by fear, and more filled with a quiet sense of resolve and purpose. Whatever truths lay concealed beneath the dense canopy or within his own mind, he sensed that his journey was now entering a new, deeper phase, one of profound discovery, insight, and understanding. He drew a deep, steadying breath, feeling the crisp, cool air fill his lungs completely, and then began to move forward along the winding trail. The path ahead was shrouded in mystery and uncertainty, yet he no longer felt like he was lost or confused. Instead, he carried with him a heightened awareness the forest was indeed alive, watching over him, perhaps guiding him toward truths he was only beginning to comprehend. The encounter with the wolf had uncovered a small fragment of the wilderness's immense depth, and he was now prepared to delve even further into its silent, enigmatic embrace. As he ventured deeper into the woods, the shadows grew longer and more pronounced, and the feeling of being observed persisted, but not as a threat, rather as a quiet protective presence. The forest's hidden secrets had started to reveal themselves not through grand or dramatic revelations, but through subtle signs, gentle nudges, and quiet hints that beckoned him onward. Finn experienced a deepening sense of connection, feeling that he was now an integral part of this place's ongoing story, and that his journey still had many more chapters ahead. The last golden rays of sunlight disappeared behind the distant treetops, plunging the forest into an almost palpable darkness that seemed to pulse with a life of its own. Hastily, Finn set up his small tent near a quiet clearing, the damp, squelching earth pressing beneath his boots with each step. Thick, heavy clouds spread across the sky, gradually smothering the remaining light and transforming the surrounding world into vast shades of gray and shadow. A bone-chilling cold settled over him, seeping into his bones as the cool, damp air carried the earthy scent of wet leaves, moss, and decay. His fingers trembled slightly as he rummaged through his pack, extracting a worn but warm jacket, which he pulled tightly around his shoulders in an attempt to stave off the creeping fatigue that threatened to overcome him after a long day filled with relentless uncertainty and doubt. The silence around him was dense and almost suffocating, broken only by the gentle rustling of leaves stirred by a soft breeze that seemed to whisper secrets. The dense forest appeared to pulse with a subtle, almost conscious awareness, as shadows flickered at the edges of his peripheral vision, making it seem as if the trees and darkness themselves were silently watching his every move. He paused for a moment, listening carefully and intently, but all that reached his ears was the faint whisper of wind threading through the branches, carrying silent secrets he dared not fully interpret. His mind was a whirlwind of questions. Was he truly near the symbols and signs he was searching for? Or was his mind merely playing tricks on him in the solitude and darkness of the night? He slowly approached the tiny campfire he had managed to kindle, the faint flickering flames barely penetrating the heavy darkness surrounding him. As he gazed into the gentle glow, his eyes subtly shifted to the shadows cast around him, darting from one obscure form to another, instinctively searching for something familiar or potentially threatening. Doubts and uncertainties gnawed at his mind. Was this eerie place truly connected to the strange cryptic symbols he had seen earlier, or was it just a coincidence that he found himself here? The tense feeling from earlier tense encounters lingered within him like a second skin, and every faint crackle of a nearby twig caused his heartbeat to quicken involuntarily. He tightened his jaw, attempting to steady his nerves, yet the oppressive silence of the forest felt heavy, almost laden with unspoken messages that he couldn't yet understand. Out of nowhere, a faint glimmer of light caught his eye just beyond the entrance of his tent. He instantly froze, his heart pounding loudly in his chest, as his eyes fixed on a small glistening object lying on the damp, muddy ground. It was a delicate, pristine white plume that shimmered subtly in the faint light filtering through the trees. His brow creased with suspicion. He had seen many birds in these woods, but this feather seemed oddly out of place, too perfect, too untouched by weather or elements. It appeared almost otherworldly, like a fragment of something not entirely natural or originating from this realm. His fingers hesitated briefly before reaching out once more, trembling slightly as he carefully lifted the delicate object. The texture was remarkably light and almost otherworldly, as if it belonged to a mysterious creature from a realm far beyond his usual understanding. A strong wave of curiosity mixed with a growing sense of unease swept over him. Could this feather be a meaningful sign, a cryptic message from the forest or its hidden unseen inhabitants? Or was it merely an odd coincidence, a random find? His stomach clenched tightly, a complex mixture of hope and skepticism rising within him. He examined the feather closely, feeling its fragile barbs and silky smooth stem, trying to decipher what message or meaning it might hold. Was it a gift or perhaps a lure? Could the forest be attempting to communicate something profound, or was this just an accidental and insignificant discovery? The woods seemed to respond subtly to his thoughts as the wind gradually picked up once more, swirling gently around his body and face. The faint whisper of the breeze felt almost like a distant voice, softly murmuring secrets just beyond his immediate understanding. Shadows danced at the very edges of his vision, flickering like fleeting illusions in the dim light. For a brief moment, he believed he saw movement, perhaps a flash of white fur or a quick shape darting swiftly behind the trees. His grip on the feather tightened instinctively, fingers curling involuntarily as he fixated on the darkness, desperately searching for answers that stubbornly refused to reveal themselves. Suddenly, a deliberate soft sound shattered the silent's gentle pause, padding quietly away into the thick undergrowth. Not hurried, not frantic, but purposeful. Finn's breath hitched, his muscles tensed as he froze in place, ears sharply straining to catch any further noise. The sound was distant but clear enough to send a ripple of heightened alertness through his entire body. The creature was retreating, or maybe silently observing from within the shadows, leaving him in suspense. He stayed perfectly still, observing as the darkness gradually consumed the faintest signs of movement, his mind racing to decipher its true meaning and significance. Carefully, he lowered himself onto the damp, cool ground, clutching the mysterious feather tightly against his chest with a sense of cautious reverence. His thoughts spun rapidly with a multitude of possibilities. Could it be the wolf? Or perhaps another mysterious creature silently lurking in the shadows of the night? The symbol of the feather appeared to carry some importance, yet its exact purpose remained elusive, shrouded in ambiguity. Was it a warning sign, a subtle token of an unseen alliance, or merely a natural object accidentally caught by chance? His gaze flickered back and forth between the shifting shadows and the faint glow of his dying fire, meticulously weighing each possible explanation. A sudden gust of wind swept through the trees, causing the branches to sway and the leaves to murmur louder, intensifying the eerie atmosphere. Finn shivered not only from the cold, but also from an emerging sense that the forest was gradually revealing fragments of its long-held hidden truths. The feather in his hand seemed heavier than before, burdened with unspoken messages, secrets, and silent warnings waiting to be uncovered. Every rustling leaf and every subtle whispering sound seemed to grow louder and more intense, as if the very trees around him were contemplating his presence and trying to decipher the meaning behind his unexpected discovery. He cast a cautious glance back toward his tent, then looked out into the surrounding darkness, filled with uncertainty. The faint, almost inaudible sound of retreating paws lingered softly in his ears, leaving him with an unshakable question that refused to fade away. Was the mysterious creature attempting to communicate with him? Or was this merely a coincidental occurrence, a fleeting shadow passing through the vast wilderness? His fingertips gently traced the intricate contours of the feather, feeling its delicate and fragile structure under his skin as if seeking to understand its story. A strange sense of resolve settled deep within him. He realized he would need to interpret the forest's cryptic signals on his own. No one else could do this for him. It was his responsibility. As he sat quietly in the darkness, the night around him grew even deeper, thick with shadows, silent whispers, and an almost palpable anticipation. The forest seemed to hold its breath, waiting intently for him to understand its ancient language. The feather in his hand felt heavier than before, as if it carried the silent weight of long-held unseen truths that he was destined to uncover. He looked once more into the deep darkness, his eyes intensely searching for elusive answers that continued to evade him entirely. The faint sound of paws, quietly retreating into the night silence, gradually faded into the background, yet a persistent thought lingered in his mind. Was the wolf trying to communicate or reach out in some way? Or was this merely another fragment of the larger puzzle, another subtle sign guiding him further into the vast unknown? He shifted his gaze downward, carefully tracing his fingers along the delicate, jagged barbs of the feather with gentle curiosity. A quiet but growing sense of determination formed within him. Whatever hidden messages or secrets the forest was trying to convey, he was determined to uncover them, no matter how cryptic, mysterious, or hazardous they might be. The night seemed to stretch endlessly, filled with silent whispers carried by the wind and shadows that shifted unpredictably, promising that the answers he longing for might be closer than he dared to believe or forever just out of reach. But this time he sensed a subtle shift within himself, a faint flicker of renewed purpose that had been missing before. The forest's ancient secrets were no longer distant mysteries. They were gradually becoming an integral part of him. The dense forest surrounding Finn was shrouded in an oppressive, heavy darkness, with only faint moonlight scarcely piercing the thick, tangled canopy overhead. His small tent shivered slightly as a sudden, sharp noise shattered the silence, an unmistakable thud, heavy and deliberate, reverberating from somewhere nearby in the dark. His heartbeat quickened noticeably, and his instincts urged him to move immediately, yet he hesitated, knowing all too well the danger of rushing blindly into the unknown without reason. He pressed his ear firmly against the fabric, attempting to discern any pattern, rhythm, or deliberate purpose behind the sound. Was it merely a falling branch, or could it be something more intentional and menacing? A fleeting wave of doubt crept over him. What if he was attracting unwanted attention from an unseen threat? Gradually, he made the decision to investigate, but with extreme caution. Reaching for his flashlight, he paused again, debating whether to step outside into the darkness or wait patiently for additional clues. The choice felt heavy, as if the entire forest was holding its breath in suspense. At last, he unzipped the tent slowly, the fabric whispering softly as he slipped into the cool, refreshing night air. The scent of damp earth mingled with pine trees, filling his nostrils and helping him stay grounded amidst the tension. He moved quietly and carefully through the dense forest, the narrow beam of his powerful flashlight slicing through the darkness, revealing patches of damp, mossy ground and twisted, gnarled roots protruding from the earth. Every snap of a twig or soft rustle of dried leaves felt amplified and exaggerated in the heavy silence that surrounded him. His eyes scanned the shadowy surroundings, desperately searching for the source of the strange disturbance. Shadows flickered and danced between the tall trees, elusive and constantly shifting in the darkness. The forest seemed alive, almost breathing with unseen movements, as if it were watching his every step. His grip on the flashlight grew tighter, fingers trembling slightly with a mix of anticipation and caution, as he slowly aimed the narrow focused beam into the enveloping shadows. Suddenly, he saw them, two faint shimmering spots of light, steady and unwavering, as they fixated directly on him. His breath caught in his throat, and his heart began pounding loudly in his chest. The glow was unnatural, almost mesmerizing, pulsing faintly like a heartbeat in the silence. The glowing eyes reflected his flashlight's beam with a cold, unblinking stare, adding a chilling sense of unease. He froze completely, his instincts urging him to step back and retreat quickly, yet an overwhelming sense of curiosity held him firmly in place. The cluster of glowing points flickered rhythmically and in perfect unison, almost as if they were silently communicating a complex message beyond his understanding. Finn's thoughts darted rapidly. Could these beings be predators lurking in the shadows, or perhaps benevolent guardians watching over him? The melodic hum emanating softly from the darkness was entirely unexpected. It was calming and gentle, providing a stark contrast to the tense state of his body and mind. The gentle pulsation of the glow seemed to soften and fade slightly, as if acknowledging his presence in a non-threatening manner rather than issuing a warning or menace. Carefully, he took a tentative step forward, lowering his voice to a nearly inaudible whisper. "Who's there?" He called out, but his words quickly dissolved into the vast oppressive silence of the night. No response followed, only the unwavering, penetrating gaze of the luminous eyes remained fixed on him. His eyes flicked nervously between the two glowing points, searching desperately for any sign of movement, recognition, or intent behind their silent vigil. A shiver ran down his spine as the truth suddenly became clear. These were not ordinary animals, but something much more extraordinary. They moved with deliberate intent, their subtle glow hinting at an inner light, possibly indicating a form of intelligence or mystical energy. Were they guardians of the forest, or did they serve some other, even more mysterious purpose? The overwhelming questions gnawed at him relentlessly, yet no definitive answers surfaced. He shifted his stance slightly, trying to steady his trembling hands and calm his racing mind. The eyes flickered once more, blinking in perfect unison as if testing his resolve and courage. A gentle breeze stirred the branches overhead, causing shadows to dance and stretch across the ground. His initial instinct was to retreat quickly, but the calm, unwavering gaze of these enigmatic creatures held him in place and made him hesitate. He sensed that rushing away might be a grave mistake. Carefully, he lowered his flashlight, maintaining its steady beam aimed at the mysterious glowing spots. The creatures remained completely still, their unwavering gazes fixed intently on him, as if silently evaluating his presence. The surrounding silence stretched out endlessly, thick and oppressive, until a soft melodic hum gently drifted through the dense trees, delicately soothing, almost hypnotic, like a lullaby carried softly on the gentle wind. It was neither a warning nor a gesture of welcome, simply an ever-present sound that filled the air. The glow of their eyes softened gradually, not disappearing entirely but reducing in brightness, as if acknowledging his cautious pause. Finn felt a strange, almost magnetic pull and internal shift that blurred the boundary between his instinctual fear and genuine intrigue. He gradually realized that these mysterious beings, whatever their true nature was, seemed to be deeply intertwined with the ancient secrets of the forest. Maybe they served as its custodians, or perhaps as silent watchers, carefully observing every single move he made. His grip on the flashlight relaxed slightly, allowing him to breathe more steadily and deeply. He kept his eyes fixed on the faint flicker of the eyes, trying to interpret the silent message behind their gaze. Could this be some kind of strange form of communication? Is it an invitation or perhaps a subtle warning? The melodic hum continued to linger, gracefully weaving its way through the cool night air, intricately connecting him to the unseen inhabitants of the forest. A new, deeper understanding slowly started to take shape. This moment wasn't merely about danger, but about an encounter with something truly profound and mysterious. The forest's timeless secrets weren't meant to be forcibly revealed. Instead, they were to be felt intuitively and approached with respect and reverence. The faint glow of the eyes, the soft hum surrounding him, and the quiet acceptance in the atmosphere all pointed toward a more profound harmony, one that Finn was just beginning to perceive and comprehend. He gradually and carefully lowered the beam of his flashlight even further, keeping his eyes fixed on the radiant pair. The gentle glow persisted but appeared to soften, almost as if the beings were acknowledging his cautious and respectful approach. His mind swirled with various questions. Who exactly were these entities? What purpose did they serve within this mysterious woodland realm? Were they guardians or simply inquisitive witnesses silently observing? The melodic hum gradually became sharper and more noticeable, resonating deeply like a delicate thread connecting him to the forest's secret hidden life beneath the canopy. For a brief moment, he remained perfectly still, caught between feelings of awe and lingering uncertainty about what he was experiencing. The shadows and patches of light moved in a silent, choreographed dance, vividly illustrating how the line separating himself from the wilderness was slowly dissolving. In that profound stillness, an unspoken understanding settled within him that some of the forest's most profound secrets weren't meant for outright discovery, but for genuine comprehension through silence, patience, and quiet observation. The soft glow of the eyes and the gentle hum that accompanied it became symbols of a vibrant living world that existed far beyond human understanding or reach. He took a deliberate, slow step backward toward his tent, keeping his gaze fixed on the faintly glowing spots that seemed to flicker in the darkness. As he reached the shelter, he paused momentarily, casting one last glance back into the shadowy woods. The luminous eyes had disappeared, fading seamlessly into the blackness like stars slipping behind drifting clouds, leaving only the fading memory of their silent presence. Exhaling a slow, steady breath, Finn felt a complex mixture of profound relief and a newfound cautious curiosity about the mysteries that still lingered in the forest depths. The night had subtly transformed something deep within him, an awakening to the fact that the forest teemed with unseen energies, constantly watching and patiently waiting. The boundary between predator and protector blurred more than ever before, and he sensed that his comprehension of this enigmatic place was just beginning to expand and evolve. He slowly turned around, heading back toward his tent, taking deliberate and hushed steps so as not to disturb the quiet surroundings. The fabric of the tent whispered softly as he entered, and he cast one last glance into the dark wilderness outside. The glowing eyes had disappeared, yet an enduring feeling of being watched persisted, a silent, unspoken assurance that the forest's countless mysteries remained far from being fully uncovered. As he zipped the tent shut, a faint contemplative smile appeared on his face. He understood now that the secrets of this sacred woodland were not meant to be forcibly revealed, but to be sensed and felt embedded in the very heartbeat of the night, in the gentle rhythmic pulse of unseen and silent observers. Whatever observed him was no longer merely an unknown threat, but had become part of this vibrant living wilderness. In that moment, Finn experienced the first faint stirrings of trust or realization that he was not alone amid the shadows, nor was he the only one silently watching in this ancient, mysterious realm. A new dawn gradually filtered through the tangled canopy, casting a muted golden hue over the damp, untouched forest floor, hinting at the mysterious awakening that lay ahead. The air was thick with the pungent aroma of damp earth and decaying foliage, while the early morning sunlight pierced the canopy unevenly through the dense, intertwined leaves. Shadows still clung tightly to the undergrowth, yet a subtle shift in the atmosphere suggested that something had subtly changed, an unspoken, tense energy that made Finn's skin tingle with anticipation. He moved carefully and quietly, each step muffled by the damp, soft soil beneath his worn-out boots, his senses acutely heightened after hours of relentless wandering through the forest. His eyes meticulously scanned the varied terrain, diligently searching for any signs of recent activity or movement. The faint tracks he had noticed earlier had become almost completely erased, swallowed by twisting roots and thick moss, but he kept going, propelled by a fragile yet persistent hope that they might lead him to answers or hidden truths. His fingers brushed against the rough bark of a gnarled pine tree trunk as he steadily navigated the unfamiliar landscape, when suddenly a gust of wind stirred the leaves above, causing a faint ripple through the dense canopy of trees. A whisper of movement barely perceptible made him freeze instantly, every muscle tensed in readiness, his senses sharpening sharply. The forest had a notorious reputation for playing tricks, branches cracking eerily in the distance, shadows darting at the edge of his vision. He squinted into the shadows, ears strained, trying to catch any faint sound or movement. Silence enveloped the area. Suddenly, there was a purposeful crunch of twigs nearby, slow, deliberate, and measured with intent. His heart started pounding faster, yet he maintained a steady and unwavering stance. The sound seemed intentional, not accidental or casual. The forest's usual murmurs of unseen creatures gradually faded into the background noise, but this particular noise carried a clear, unmistakable sense of purpose and intention. Finn's eyes darted rapidly from side to side, scanning for any sign of the source, but only dense, lush greenery met his curious gaze. Still, a persistent prickling sensation ran down his spine, an instinct, warning him of unseen eyes secretly watching from the shadows. A few meters ahead, the terrain gently dipped into a small clearing, framed by thick tangled bushes and drooping overgrown branches. As he cautiously moved closer, his eyes caught sight of a cluster of objects that seemed out of place, a pile of discarded rusty tools haphazardly strewn on the ground, half buried in the muddy earth. Nearby, a torn, faded piece of cloth, stained with dark patches and looking old, fluttered feebly in the breeze. His breathing suddenly became shallow and uneven. These were unmistakable, clear signs indicating recent human activity nearby. He carefully crouched down close to the scattered debris, his fingertips gently brushing against the rough, coarse fabric. The torn cloth had jagged, uneven rips, as though it had been hastily torn apart and carelessly discarded. Surrounding him were various tools scattered chaotically: a rusty axe with a chipped, dull blade, a bent and misshapen knife, and a pair of pliers broken into multiple pieces. Each of these items pointed to urgent, hurried activity, possibly a struggle or an abrupt, frantic escape. His stomach tightened with unease. Why would someone leave behind such obvious remnants of their passage? Was it a sign of recent visitors, or perhaps something darker and more ominous? Suddenly, a flicker of movement appeared behind the bushes, catching his eye. His muscles tensed sharply, muscles coiled and ready for action. He hesitated briefly, weighing the idea of calling out, but the words became lodged in his throat, unable to pass. The forest had already demonstrated its ability to deceive and mislead, and speaking aloud might only increase the risk of revealing his position to whoever or whatever was lurking nearby. Instead, he instinctively reached for his trusty knife, gripping it firmly with a sense of readiness, prepared for anything that might suddenly materialize from the shadows. Then, out of the silence, a faint voice drifted softly through the dense trees, distant but unmistakably clear enough to cause his heart to skip a beat. It was a voice he recognized immediately, gentle, strained, almost breathless with emotion. Finn. He froze in place, every nerve tense and alert. The voice carried a sense of familiarity, mixed with desperation and a flicker of hope. His mind raced. Was it genuinely him, or merely a hallucination brought on by fatigue, loneliness, and his stressed state of mind? He strained intensely to listen carefully, his eyes darting anxiously into the shadowy darkness around him. The voice continued persistently, wavering delicately like a fragile thread woven into the heavy silence of the night. A cold shiver unexpectedly ran down his spine, causing goosebumps to form on his skin. The surrounding woods seemed to hold their breath, quietly waiting for him to make a move or reveal himself. He moved cautiously and slowly in the direction of the faint sound, each step deliberate and measured, his heart pounding rapidly with a mixture of longing, curiosity, and caution. As he approached, the voice grew softer and more pleading. "Finn, I'm here." The words gently floated on the breeze, carried by the faint rustling of the leaves in the breeze. His pulse quickened further, an intense and confusing mixture of hope and dread flooding his entire being. Could it really be someone from his distant past reaching out? Or was this just an illusion, a fleeting fragment of his fractured mind, desperately trying to fill the empty void inside? He arrived at a small, peaceful clearing illuminated by gentle, dappled sunlight filtering through the leaves, where patches of soft moss and fallen branches lay scattered across the ground. The distant familiar sound of a voice was now nearby, just beyond a dense cluster of trees and underbrush. He pressed himself carefully against a sturdy, rough bark tree trunk, glancing out cautiously to survey his surroundings. From behind the lush foliage, a figure gradually materialized, dressed in dark clothing, their face concealed in shadow and mystery. The figure called his name once more, speaking in a softer tone, but with unmistakable clarity. Recognition flickered in his mind. Was it someone he knew, a particular person from his past, someone still alive and real? Or was it merely a hallucination, a fleeting image caused by exhaustion and deep loneliness? The figure hesitated at the edge of the light, lips moving silently in a quiet gesture. The silence stretched heavily between them, filled only with the unspoken plea in their eyes, searching patiently, waiting for a response. Finn's grip on his knife tightened even more, his instincts warning him to remain extremely cautious at all times. However, a faint flicker of hope pushed him to continue moving forward despite the inherent risk. Suddenly, the mysterious figure stepped into a patch of warm golden sunlight, revealing more of their silhouette in form and detail. The face remained hidden in shadow, yet their posture was strikingly familiar, so familiar that it stirred a complex, overwhelming wave of emotion within him. The voice called out again, now softer and more tender, yet undeniably sincere and heartfelt. Finn. The figure's lips moved silently, but no sound escaped, only a silent plea reflected clearly in their eyes, full of longing and desperation. His breath caught in his throat, and he hesitated, torn between caution and hope. Every instinct inside him screamed to proceed with extreme caution, yet his heart yearned deeply for a meaningful connection. Was this moment a sign, an unseen guide leading him forward, or perhaps a crucial turning point? Or was it merely a cruel illusion intended to lure him even further into the mysterious woods? A distant fading echo responded, another indistinct voice, calling back from deeper within the dense forest. The sound was faint yet carried a strange sense of familiarity, tightening his throat with a mix of hope and fear. Was it a comforting reassurance? Or perhaps a subtle warning? He hesitated briefly before taking a cautious step forward, his muscles tense and rigid, eyes intently fixed on the shadowy figure ahead. The surrounding forest once again seemed to hold its breath, waiting silently for his decision to follow that elusive voice into the unknown darkness or to retreat into silence and lingering doubt. His hand hovered near his belt, tightly clutching the worn pendant. He always carried a small but vital anchor amidst his growing uncertainty. Taking a deep, steadying breath, Finn resolved to follow that mysterious voice, regardless of how fragile or potentially deceptive it might seem. The forest's long-held secrets had become too deeply tangled and intricate to ignore any longer, and he urgently needed answers, truths carefully buried beneath multiple layers of shadows and mysteries. As he steadily moved toward the distant figure, the fading call of the voice gradually disappeared into the background noise, replaced by the gentle rhythmic hum of life that surrounded him from all directions. Each step felt increasingly heavier, yet strangely lighter at the same time, propelled by a complex mixture of hope, necessity, and an unyielding desire to uncover the truth. Somewhere hidden ahead, the true answer was waiting concealed among the shadows, patiently lying in wait for someone brave enough to uncover it. The woods around him seemed to lean in closer, listening and watching intently as Finn pressed deeper into the unknown, unwavering in his determination to find the source of the mysterious voice and perhaps to discover something about himself along the way. Finn stopped at the edge of a secluded clearing, his eyes narrowing sharply as they fixated on the weathered wooden structure that stood before him. The small, somewhat worn cabin appeared oddly out of place amid the tangled, dense trees, its paint faded and peeling from years of exposure, yet it still remained resilient against the unrelenting passage of time. The air surrounding it was thick with the scent of damp wood and earthy herbs, a mixture that felt strangely grounding and comforting, yet also carried an unspoken sense of mystery and secrecy. His fingers instinctively tightened around the strap of his backpack, a flicker of hesitation passing through his chest, though. He pushed through the low-hanging branches and stepped carefully onto the uneven root-covered ground. As he pushed open the creaking door, it groaned softly, revealing a dimly lit interior filled with fragmented sunlight, filtering through cracks and gaps in the weathered walls. The room was humble yet warm and welcoming, filled with a jumble of maps, sketches, and photographs that were hastily tacked and pinned across the walls in no particular order. Dried herbs hung upside down from the ceiling beams, their faint herbal aroma blending subtly with the rich scent of aged weathered wood. Finn's eyes wandered over the familiar symbols and images, each one subtly revealing a desperate attempt to decipher or exert some control over the forest's mysterious and concealed secrets. A sudden movement from the corner of the room startled him into involuntary stillness. Inside, a figure slowly emerged from the shadows, causing his heart rate to increase noticeably. The woman was slightly taller than him, her tangled hair streaked with streaks of gray and dirt smudged across her face from exposure to the wilderness. Yet her eyes held a calm yet intense focus that instantly dispelled any suspicions. She was holding a small, well-worn knife in her hand, but lowered it deftly when she noticed his cautious stance, her posture both relaxed and ready. "Who are you?" she asked softly, her voice steady but imbued with a gentle curiosity. Finn hesitated for a moment, then took a cautious step forward, raising his hand slightly in a non-threatening, peaceful gesture. "My name is Finn. I've been wandering these dense woods for several days now, following faint signs and clues trying to understand what's really happening here and how I got involved in this strange place. I didn't expect at any point to come across anyone else living or surviving within these woods." Her expression softened just a little, her eyes narrowing as she carefully assessed him. "I've been here longer than I care to openly admit or reveal," she said quietly, extending her hand in greeting. He reached out and accepted her hand, feeling the rough calluses and hardened skin beneath her fingers from years of hard labor and survival. "Why did you come here?" she pressed, withdrawing her hand slowly but keeping a watchful, wary gaze on him. "I've witnessed bizarre markings, symbols intricately carved into ancient trees, mysterious footprints, and unfamiliar animals lurking in the shadows. At first, I thought I was losing my grip on reality, but now I believe these strange signs are deeply interconnected. I've been actively searching for someone who might truly understand their meaning and significance." Elena nodded slowly, her eyes flickering with a mix of recognition and cautious curiosity. "You're not the only one noticing these things. I've been diligently tracking the same unusual patterns, cryptic symbols, strange noises echoing through the night, and fleeting glimpses of the white wolf." It's not merely an ordinary animal. I believe it's serving as a messenger, or perhaps a protective guardian sent to guide us. Finn's brow furrowed deeply as he processed this information. The wolf, you've seen it too. That's incredible. It's as if these signs are trying to tell us something significant. She moved slightly closer, her voice lowering even further into a quiet, cautious whisper. Yes, and it's definitely no ordinary creature at all. It seems to appear unexpectedly, often at critical moments that feel like pivotal turning points in our journey. I truly believe it's connected to the forest, deeper hidden secrets, something beyond what we can perceive with our natural senses or see with our eyes. He's studied her carefully, observing her expression and noting the genuine sincerity and conviction in her tone. Do you think it's trying to tell us something, or perhaps guide us along a hidden path? Elena paused thoughtfully, her gaze fixed intently on a photograph pinned to the wall, an image of the white wolf, captured in a fleeting moment of stillness, as if frozen in time. I think it's more than just that. I sense there's a greater purpose behind its appearances. The wolf is an intrinsic part of the forest collective consciousness. It feels as if the entire woodland is alive, constantly observant, and this mysterious creature serves as a crucial bridge between what lies hidden in the shadows and what is openly known and understood. A faint spark of hope was suddenly sparked within Finn's heart. For the first time since he had entered these dense woods in unfamiliar surroundings, he sensed a tangible possibility, a clear direction amid the overwhelming chaos. However, lurking beneath that flicker of optimism was a shadow of deep doubt. Could they genuinely trust one another? Could they rely on what they were seeing and experiencing? Elena seemed to pick up on his hesitation and uncertainty. We must openly share everything we've uncovered. The symbols, the signs, they are all interconnected in some way, forming a larger picture. And I believe that the true key lies deep in understanding the wolf's crucial role within this mystery. It's no accident that you encountered it, and I saw it too. I truly believe that was no mere coincidence. He nodded thoughtfully, taking in her words. In that case, we should combine our knowledge and insights. Perhaps together, we can finally uncover the hidden truth behind all of these phenomena and events. She pointed towards a cluttered, chaotic table filled with various sketches, notes, and scattered papers. I've been diligently mapping out the strange symbols I've discovered, trying to decode their meaning and origin. I feel they're part of a larger, interconnected pattern, something ancient, possibly sacred or divine in nature. I've also recorded bizarre sounds at night, whispering, almost like faint voices calling out to someone. Finn stepped closer, carefully examining her detailed sketches and notes with focus and curiosity. Can I see? She handed him a sheet covered with a complex array of symbols and intricate lines, their exact meanings still somewhat unclear and open to interpretation. Some of these resemble carvings I've seen on trees in certain ancient sites. Others seem completely unfamiliar to me. I believe they're messages, perhaps instructions, warnings, or maybe a call to action that needs deciphering. He examined the symbols carefully, feeling a strange sense of connection, like they stirred something deep inside his subconscious or a long-lost memory. And what about the sounds? Did you record them? Elena nodded in response, retrieving a small portable recording device from her bag. She pressed the play button, and a faint, ghostly whisper echoed through the room, an indistinct, whispering voice layered over the rustling leaves, creating an eerie and mysterious ambience. The voice was layered and haunting, echoing as if originating from all directions at once and creating an eerie, immersive atmosphere. "Do you hear that?" she asked softly, her voice tinged with wonder and a touch of apprehension. "Yes," Finn responded quietly, his voice barely above a whisper, as if afraid to disturb the mysterious sounds. "It's like the forest is speaking in a strange language we don't fully understand yet, a language centuries old and full of secrets." She looked at him with a mixture of relief and concern, her eyes reflecting both curiosity and unease. "We're not just chasing random signs or signals," she said softly. "We're trying to listen to something much older, something that's been here long before us, within these woods in their silent history." A sudden gust of wind rattled the windows violently, causing the candles to flicker erratically, casting shifting shadows across the room. Outside, the forest appeared to pulse with an almost living energy, shadows moving subtly at the edge of sight, as if the woods themselves were alive and whispering secrets. Both of them paused, each feeling the heavy weight of the significant moment pressing down intensely on their shoulders. Elena broke the stillness with a hesitant voice. "There's more to this than we initially realized. I've seen the wolf several times now, consistently appearing nearby whenever I discover a new symbol or hear strange, unexplainable sounds. It's as if it's either guiding me along this path or perhaps testing my resolve and intentions." Finn gazed thoughtfully out the window, watching the trees gently sway in a restless, almost hypnotic rhythm. "And what do you think its true purpose is? What could it possibly want from us?" She shrugged slowly, a flicker of uncertainty passing across her face, revealing how unsure she was about her own beliefs. "That's exactly what we need to uncover, but I strongly believe that it's connected to the mysterious symbols, the whispered voices in the dark, and perhaps even linked to what lies beneath the forest's thick surface, hiding secrets we have yet to fully comprehend." He took a deep, steadying breath, feeling the faint flicker of hope gradually grow stronger within him. For the very first time, he sensed a possible way forward, not as a solitary wanderer lost amidst the dense, twisting woods, but as part of something much larger, something with the profound potential to uncover the hidden truth. Elena reached out cautiously, her hand gently brushing his arm for a brief moment of reassurance. "We can't do this alone. Whatever is happening here, it's far bigger than just the two of us. But together, perhaps we can piece it all together and truly understand it." Finn met Or's steady gaze, the initial tension in his body, slowly giving way to a deep sense of resolve. "Then let's keep listening, carefully listening to the signs from the forest, to the whispering winds, and to the wolf. Because I have a strong feeling that's the only way we'll finally uncover what's truly concealed beneath these ancient trees and tangled branches." As the shadows grew longer and stretched across the landscape outside, a new sense of understanding began to emerge, an unspoken vow to confront the mysteries ahead, no matter how unpredictable or daunting the journey might be. The dense forest pressed tightly around Finn and Elena as they ventured further into the tangled maze of gnarled branches and thick undergrowth. The sky overhead was heavy with increasingly darkening clouds, casting a gloomy slate-gray pallor over the entire scene, making the surroundings feel even more oppressive. Shadows flickered and shifted eerie patterns with every gust of wind, which carried a low, whispering hum almost like distant voices or long-forgotten secrets slipping silently through the air. Each step they took appeared more deliberate and careful, with every snap of a twig underfoot echoing sharply in the oppressive silence that stretched unbroken between them. The humid, weighty air clung persistently to their skin, causing each breath to feel slower and more deliberate, as if the very forest was pressing down upon them with a silent weight. Elena kept her gaze fixed steadily ahead, her posture tense yet composed, displaying quiet strength. She paused briefly, tilting her head to listen closely to the shifting sounds of the sky overhead, then turned toward Finn with a look of resolute determination. "Stay close. The trail is uncertain and unpredictable, and the weather is rapidly worsening," she said softly but firmly. "We won't have much visibility if it suddenly starts pouring heavily and relentlessly." Her voice remained calm and steady, but there was a strong sense of determination behind her words, masking any underlying worry that she might be feeling. Finn nodded in agreement, pulling his jacket more tightly around himself, feeling the heavy weight of uncertainty pressing fiercely against his chest, yet fully aware that they couldn't afford to hesitate or second-guess their decisions. Guided carefully by the faint signs Elena had noted earlier, the snapped branch on the ground, the scattered displaced leaves they pressed on cautiously, step by cautious step. The wind began to pick up again, growing stronger and more intense, whispering urgent, fragmented messages through the trees, as if the forest itself was trying to warn them or possibly even issue a command. Finn's senses sharpened intensely. Shadows seemed to hide unseen threats or perhaps even potential allies lurking just out of view. His eyes flicked back and forth between the wavering silhouettes of distant trees, their outlines shimmering eerily in the gusts of wind. Suddenly, a violent gust of wind caused a branch to sway wildly, scraping roughly against another with a sharp metallic screech that echoed unnaturally through the woods. "Did you hear that?" Elena asked softly, her voice tense and filled with concern. Finn paused for a moment, listening very carefully and attentively to every faint sound around him. The dense woods around him responded with a deep, thunderous rumble, something more profound than just the wind blowing through the trees, indicating a deliberate and purposeful movement nearby. His brow furrowed in suspicion as he carefully scanned the shadowy darkness, his instincts warning him that this was far from an ordinary noise. A slight flicker of movement at the corner of his field of vision caught his eye and drew his full attention. He instantly froze in place, muscles tensing up as he prepared for any sudden movement. Suddenly, a dark shape darted swiftly behind a nearby cluster of bushes, quick and fleeting in its motion. Elena also noticed it at the same time, her body stiffened in quiet alarm. "Could be an animal," she whispered softly, although her voice carried a hint of doubt and uncertainty. Finn shook his head slowly, feeling increasingly uneasy. The woods had turned into a place of mystery and unpredictability, far more strange than before. Whatever was drawing near was definitely not part of the local wildlife. He took a deep, steadying breath, trying to suppress the growing sense of unease that was creeping over him. "Stay alert," he whispered softly, his voice tense with caution. The wind suddenly shifted again, bringing with it a rhythmic, rustling noise that seemed to emanate from all directions at once. It was as if the entire forest was whispering a cryptic warning, urging them to reconsider whether they should proceed further along their current path. Elena clenched her staff tightly in her hands, her eyes darting around the shadowy surroundings with renewed intensity and focus. "We need to move faster," she murmured quietly, her voice filled with concern. "Whatever's out there might not be alone, and we could be in more danger than we realize." They continued their cautious journey, following the faint trail of the wolf recent, distinct that was guiding them through the tangled labyrinth of branches, roots, and dense foliage. Every step was deliberate and slow, taken with great care to avoid making noise or attracting unwanted attention from whatever lurked nearby. The oppressive atmosphere deepened and grew even more suffocating. The dense canopy above completely blocked out most of the remaining sunlight, casting the entire area into near darkness. The whispers of the wind intensified, becoming louder and more persistent, as Finn suddenly felt a prickling sensation along his skin, as though unseen eyes were watching him from the shadows in the darkness. Without warning, a loud rustling sound erupted nearby, startling both of them into complete stillness. The noise was unnatural, sharp, and discordant, disrupting the usual gentle symphony of forest sounds that they had been accustomed to. Elena's grip on her staff tightened with a subtle tremor of tension as her eyes darted quickly toward the source of the disturbance. A quick, almost imperceptible movement, something small, quick, and elusive, slipped silently through the thick underbrush, vanishing behind a fallen log almost instantly. Her eyes narrowed sharply as she tried to identify the strange shape or figure. The silence that settled afterward felt dense and heavy, almost oppressive in its stillness. Then, emerging from the shadows, came a faint series of crackling sounds, tiny, irregular snaps and rustles suggesting that something was trying to hide or slip past unnoticed without being seen. Finn took a cautious, deliberate step forward, his voice barely above a whisper as he cautiously looked around. "What was that sound we just heard?" he asked softly, trying to keep his nerves steady. Elena kept her gaze fixed intensely on the surrounding darkness, her senses heightened and alert to any movement. "Not entirely sure," she responded quietly, "but we're getting very close now. Whatever it was, it definitely knows we're here at this moment." Suddenly, a sudden gust of wind swept through the area, causing a branch hanging overhead to sway violently and creak loudly against the stillness of the night. Then, in the silence, came the unmistakable sound of footsteps, light, measured, and purposeful, approaching steadily from the east. Instinctively, Finn and Elena pressed themselves flat against the rough bark of a sturdy, thick trunk tree, holding their breaths, filled with tension and anticipation. The footsteps grew louder, more rhythmic, echoing softly through the quiet night. From the shadowy depths emerged a mysterious figure, cloaked, indistinct, moving deliberately with purpose. Its silhouette was too dark and vague to discern clearly, but its posture conveyed someone or something watching intently and waiting silently in the darkness. Finn's eyes caught a faint flicker, a single eye reflecting faintly in the gloom, staring back with unwavering, piercing focus. They stood motionless, caught in a tense moment of suspicion mixed with a fragile, tentative sense of trust. The surrounding forest seemed to hold its breath as whispers of the wind and the rustling of leaves blended into a haunting chorus of uncertainty and anticipation. The figure paused briefly, then resumed its quiet approach, slow yet deliberate in its movements. Elena's grip on her sturdy staff tightened as she stepped forward slightly, instinctively ready to either confront the stranger or retreat, depending on what was gradually revealed. Finn's heart raced not from fear, but from a strange rising sense of anticipation and curiosity. The forest's hidden secrets appeared to be gradually unveiling themselves, layer by layer, in this tense moment. Suddenly, the mysterious figure halted just a few meters away, as if deciding whether to continue or pause. A gentle yet firm voice interrupted the silence, calm, steady, and carrying a subtle tone of authority. "You really shouldn't be here," it said quietly, but with unmistakable firmness. The words lingered in the air, heavy with unspoken implications and warnings. This sudden statement dramatically altered their understanding of the situation, revealing that they had crossed into a restricted or forbidden zone. The tone of the speaker's voice clearly signaled that they were unwelcome intruders or trespassers in this area. Elena's eyes sharpened with focus as she prepared to respond, her hand instinctively gripping her staff while Finn's thoughts spun rapidly, trying to determine whether this figure was an ally, a threat, or perhaps something more ambiguous. In that tense moment, Elena lowered her staff slightly and exchanged a quick knowing glance with Finn. They both recognized that their unexpected presence had inadvertently triggered this confrontation, making it clear that their journey into the forest was now far more complicated. They had entered a place governed by unseen rules and guarded by mysterious protectors. As the figure remained quietly observing them, Finn found himself overwhelmed by a newfound sense of awareness and understanding, settling deep within him. The forest was no longer merely a backdrop of shadows. In hushed whispers, it had become a vibrant conscious entity, watching and actively responding to their presence. Their understanding of the complex landscape, the lurking threats, and their own fragile vulnerability had grown significantly deeper. Overhead, the sky continued to darken further, with the clouds growing denser and more ominous, foretelling an imminent storm. The wind's murmurs grew louder and more insistent, almost sounding urgent and commanding. Elena tightened her grip on her staff, her senses alert and ready for whatever might come next, while Finn prepared himself mentally for a confrontation that could forever alter their fate. The mysterious figure shifted slightly, then spoke once again with a voice that was softer but undeniably firm and commanding. "Turn back now. This place is not safe for outsiders or uninvited visitors." The warning was unmistakably clear. While the forest's many secrets had begun to be uncovered, the true dangers still lurked unseen, concealed deep within the shadows. The chapter concluded with Finn and Elena sharing a tense, scrutinizing glance, fully aware that their circumstances had dramatically changed and taken a new uncertain turn. Their understanding of the forest's numerous mysteries and their own purpose within this landscape had become considerably deeper, paving the way for the revelations awaiting them in the next chapter of their journey. Lightning tore through the sky with jagged, relentless fury, casting brief, stark illumination on the dense canopy above. The thunder rumbled ominously, rolling through the trees and echoing hauntingly, serving as a warning of the storm's relentless advancing threat. The wind howled fiercely, tearing at fragile branches and whipping fallen leaves into frenzied spirals, creating a chaotic dance of nature's raw power. Finn and Elena pressed their backs tightly against a fallen log, their breaths shallow and labored, eyes intently fixed on the swirling chaos around them, as the tempest raged overhead with fierce intensity. Suddenly, the shrill sound of chainsaws shattered the storm's ominous symphony, the metallic screeches, cutting sharply through the relentless rain and howling wind, forming a brutal rhythmic pattern. that underscored the destructive violence unfolding beneath the storm cloud. The ground beneath their feet shuddered faintly, a foreboding tremor that seemed to protest the relentless destruction inflicted upon the forest's peaceful serenity. Flashes of lightning briefly revealed silhouettes of workers, clad in rain-drenched hoods and hard hats, wielding machinery with ruthless, precise efficiency as they carried out the ongoing destruction. Men shouted urgent commands amidst the overwhelming noise, their voices barely faint against the furious storm. Elena's eyes widened in alarm as she pointed urgently toward a clearing where a group of loggers had gathered around freshly felled trees. She immediately recognized the pattern: relentless chainsawing, sharp splinters flying into the air, mud and debris splattering across the forest floor with each cut. Her voice quivered with intense urgency. "Finn, look. They're destroying everything completely uncontrolled. They're not stopping at all." He clenched his fists tightly, a wave of helpless rage tightening his jaw as he observed the scene. His mind was racing. This was no accidental act. It was a deliberate and well-planned act of destruction. "We can't just stand here and watch," he muttered through clenched teeth with determination. "We have to do something immediately." A sudden, intense flash of lightning struck nearby, illuminating the entire scene with an eerie, ghostly, spectral glow that flickered across the landscape. In that fleeting moment, Finn caught a glimpse of the gleam of metal axes, shovels, chainsaw blades all twisted and sharpened, each representing a symbol of destruction and devastation. The ground beneath them quivered once more as a colossal tree was uprooted, crashing down with a thunderous, deafening boom that rattled the earth and sent a torrent of mud, dirt, and debris flying into the air in all directions. The overwhelming noise was nearly deafening, completely drowning out the thunderclaps, and for an instant, the entire forest environment seemed to hold its collective breath, as if in fear or awe. Elena instinctively reached out and grasped Finn's arm with trembling, shaky fingers. "We can't just stand here and do nothing," she whispered fiercely and urgently. "They're tearing apart our home and everything we hold dear. We have to stop them before it's too late." He nodded firmly, his eyes burning with unwavering resolve and determination. "We have to try, no matter what," he said quietly but resolutely. "We cannot allow this situation to persist any longer." Without hesitation, they forcefully pushed through the dense underbrush, rain pouring down and making their skin slick and their movements extremely challenging. Each step was an arduous struggle against the slippery ground and the relentless howling wind, yet their unwavering determination forced them to keep going forward. As they drew closer to the edge of the clearing, the loggers nearby detected the movement. "Hey, who's there?" one shouted loudly, his voice muffled by the heavy rain and the distance between them. Several men turned towards the sound, raising their tools defensively, with suspicion clearly visible on their faces. Elena stepped ahead of the group, raising her hands in a calm and peaceful gesture to avoid conflict. "Stop. Please, we mean no harm," she said softly, trying to de-escalate the tense situation. "This situation simply isn't correct. You're actively destroying the forest, our shared home and vital ecosystem. You can't just clear all the trees without facing serious consequences and repercussions for nature and everyone who depends on it." The crew's leader, a large, muscular man with a prominent, jagged scar crossing his cheek, scoffed dismissively. "What concern is it of yours? This land now belongs to us. We've got strict orders, and we're determined to finish the job no matter what." His voice was gravelly, harsh, tinged with impatience and an undeniable sense of authority. Finn's jaw clenched tightly as he searched desperately for words that could somehow stop the machinery from proceeding further. But just before he could find the right words, a sudden flicker of movement caught his attention, drawing his gaze elsewhere. One of the workers, a younger man with uncertain hesitation in his movements, paused as he cautiously approached a fallen log lying across the muddy ground. His hand subtly lingered near his pocket, clutching a small shiny object, a pocket knife tilted slightly in his grasp. The storm outside continued to rage fiercely, yet an unexpected new tension seemed to build in the tense air around them. The group's attention shifted sharply from the tall swaying trees to the intruders threatening their safety in the forest itself. The chainsaw's engines roared even louder, sparks flying wildly from the grinding blades as they sliced through the wood. The earth trembled again beneath their feet as another massive trunk was severed, crashing down with an earth-shaking, thunderous impact. Elena's voice cracked with raw desperation and urgency. "Please think carefully about what you're doing. This forest has a spirit." She was suddenly overwhelmed by a jarring, deafening crack of thunder that completely drowned out her words. The young man's hand quickly shot out, instinctively grabbing a small, sharply pointed knife from his pocket. His eyes flickered with a mixture of fear and stubborn defiance, and his body trembled slightly as he hesitated before making any move. The leader of the group barked a sharp command, raising his hand assertively. "Get them," he yelled loudly. The loggers advanced rapidly, chainsaws howling loudly and shovels raised high in readiness. Finn lunged forward to block one of the oncoming tools, but he was clearly outnumbered and overwhelmed. Elena quickly stepped beside him, her voice rising above the chaotic noise of the scene. "Stop, you're destroying more than just trees, you're killing the very soul and spirit of this place," she shouted passionately. A sudden bright flash of lightning lit up the entire scene, casting dramatic and stark shadows over the desperate confrontation. The storm's raw energy seemed to crackle intensely in the thick, stormy air, fueled not only by the fierce tempest above, but also by the rising tension among everyone present. The young man's trembling hand grasped the shiny object tightly, its surface reflecting brief flashes of lightning that illuminated the darkened sky. Suddenly, a different unsettling sound pierced through the chaos, the deafening cracking of a massive tree, stretching at an unnatural, precarious angle, completely blocking the path of the machinery. The loggers immediately froze in place, a mixture of confusion and alarm flickering across their worried faces. The wind roared even louder now, bending the remaining trees and creating a deafening symphony of cracking branches, swirling leaves, and howling gusts. In that tense moment, Finn took a deep breath and shouted urgently, "Stop! Leave it alone, don't touch it." The leader hesitated for a heartbeat, eyes narrowing sharply as he assessed the situation. "Who do you think you are?" he responded coldly. "Stay out of this and mind your own business." Elena stepped forward once more, her voice calm yet firm. "This forest is alive and conscious. You're destroying it, and it's fighting back fiercely. If you push any further, you will truly regret your actions." Suddenly, a second lightning bolt flashed across the sky, illuminating the entire scene with an intense, blinding light. The wind intensified significantly, howling loudly as rain hammered down like icy fists, smashing everything in its path. The loggers appeared visibly unsettled, some exchanging nervous glances while gazing at the dark looming trees and the turbulent storm above. In that tense and critical moment, the young man slowly lowered his knife, taking a cautious step back as if surrendering. The remaining men hesitated, sensing a sudden shift in the atmosphere. The leader muttered a soft curse under his breath, then waved his crew to stand down and cease their aggressive actions. The storm's relentless fury persisted vigorously, yet unexpectedly, a strange and peaceful calm took hold over the dense forest. The battered and scarred trees appeared to hold their breath, standing resilient and steadfast against the chaos raging around them. Finn and Elena exchanged meaningful glances, an overwhelming sense of relief mixed with cautious optimism. They had managed to disrupt the destructive force, at least for the present moment. As the rain diminished slightly, Finn turned his gaze toward the distant horizon, where the storm's fierce edge was already beginning to retreat. The forest had fought fiercely back, and that hard-won victory, fragile yet significant, carried a weight of hope far beyond mere words. It suggested that their battle was far from over, but for now, they had succeeded in buying precious time. They understood they couldn't linger long in this place, as the loggers might regroup, return swiftly, or even report everything that had transpired. Yet, for this fleeting moment, the woods remained alive, bruised and battered, but unbroken, and this realization rekindled their strong sense of determination and hope. The storm's sudden departure left behind a battered yet resilient forest, inspiring in their hearts a renewed and unwavering determination to protect it at all costs. As they prepared to leave, Elena cast a hesitant glance back at the dark, twisted trees, feeling the faint but persistent pulse of life still beating beneath the storm's damage and scars. Finn's steady gaze revealed a quiet promise that they would return stronger, wiser, and more prepared to face any challenge that lay ahead. The fierce storm had tested their resolve, but it had also ignited within both of them a newfound hope that even amidst destruction, the indomitable spirit of nature could endure and recover. The moon cast a pale icy glow over the heavy, dense woods as Finn and Elena pressed themselves against the damp, moss-covered earth behind a fallen log, their breaths shallow and ragged from the tension. Shadows shifted and danced at the edges of their vision, flickering eerily with every rustle of leaves, while distant shouts echoed through the trees, blending with the relentless drone of machinery at work. The air thickened with the scent of wet soil mixed with burnt fuel, sharp metallic fumes from nearby logging equipment punctuating the quiet night. Every sound seemed magnified. The crack of a twig or the snap of branches heightened their alertness, sharpening their senses to every movement around them. Elena pressed a finger gently to her lips, her eyes flickering toward the faint glow of approaching headlights, piercing through the darkness ahead. The distant hum of chainsaws and the clang of metal against wood grew louder, a clear sign that the loggers were closing in on their position, threatening to threaten the fragile refuge they sought to protect. Their mission had been dangerous and reckless, yet absolutely essential to disable the machinery in order to buy precious extra time for the forest's brave defenders, fighting to protect their homeland. However, the looming threat of being discovered weighed heavily on them, pressing down like an unyielding iron weight that tightened their nerves and heightened their senses. Suddenly, a sharp shout shattered the tense silence, firm, commanding and urgent. "Hey, did you see that movement?" A voice yelled out forcefully, immediately followed by hurried footsteps crunching loudly through twigs, dry leaves, and underbrush. Finn tightly clenched his makeshift weapon, a sturdy, sharpened stick, and exchanged a quick, tense glance with Elena. Their original plan was simple: sabotage the equipment swiftly and slip away unnoticed before anyone could catch them. But now, with the unexpected noise, the danger had escalated dramatically, making their situation even more critical. Elena nodded silently in response, gripping a small toolkit tightly in her hand as they prepared to react swiftly. Her trembling fingers cautiously reached into her pocket, carefully retrieving a sturdy crowbar along with a set of well-used pliers. The nearest large generator emitted a deep, ominous rumble, its thick, heavy cables snaking across the muddy ground toward the dense forest beyond. With slow, deliberate movements, Elena inserted the pry bar underneath the robust casing, applying gentle pressure to pry it open just enough to reveal the complex tangle of wires inside. Sparks sputtered wildly as she methodically worked, the metallic cover resisting her efforts in producing a shower of sparks. Suddenly, loud shouts erupted from the clearing, more urgent, more frantic than before. "There, over there," a voice yelled sharply, immediately followed by the unmistakable flicker of flashlights sweeping rapidly through the underbrush. The bright beams cut sharply through the darkness, illuminating patches of the forest floor and casting shifting, sinister shadows that seemed to dance with malevolent intent. Elena's eyes widened in surprise and tension. She suddenly yanked a wire free, sparks flying wildly from the exposed live connection. The generator sputtered ominously, its steady hum faltering into a rattling cough before abruptly dying out completely. The heavy machinery lurched uncontrollably, followed by a tumultuous cascade of crashing and metal clattering as the system ground to an abrupt halt. Their eyes widened in a mixture of shock and triumph success, but only for a brief moment before real danger loomed. Just as they prepared to breathe a sigh of relief, a loud snap of a heavy branch breaking under a weight drew their immediate attention. The shouts grew louder and more aggressive, echoing through the trees. Powerful beams of light swept rapidly over their hiding spot, illuminating the underbrush with relentless precision. Finn pressed himself as flat as possible against the damp, earthy ground, grasping the sturdy branch tightly in his hands while the searchlight paused ever so slightly, then moved on. "Damn it, Elena," whispered hurriedly, her voice trembling with rising panic. "They're onto us. We have to get out of here before," a commanding voice thundered through the thick canopy of trees, thick with authority and urgency. "Stop right there! Who's out there?" The unmistakable sound of a rifle being cocked, accompanied by a sharp click, sent a chilling shiver down their spines, the cold metal's echo reverberating eerily through the dense woods. Finn's mind was racing, realizing that remaining in this spot would be nothing short of suicidal. They knew they had to move immediately, without hesitation. Elena silently signaled him to follow her. Together, they crawled carefully across the uneven and rugged terrain, slipping past tangled roots, fallen branches, and leaf litter, trying desperately to stay concealed from the piercing beams of the searchlights. The bright beams flickered intermittently, casting brief, fleeting patches of light that seemed to probe every shadow and corner around them. Their movements were cautious yet quick, each carefully placed step bringing them closer to the darkest, most impenetrable parts of the forest. Suddenly, a distant shout broke the tense silence. Elena quickly whispered, We need to split up now to increase our chances of escaping. Cover more ground efficiently and quickly. Finn hesitated for only a brief moment before giving a decisive nod. Without further hesitation, they each veered sharply in opposite directions, shadows quickly swallowing their human forms as they plunged deeper into the ominous, thick darkness of the forest. Their breathing became increasingly ragged, yet the rush of adrenaline masked the growing aches of exhaustion and fatigue. Every faint rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig underfoot, transformed into a critical warning signal. Finn darted swiftly between dense clusters of towering trees, catching fleeting glimpses of the loggers, a rough, ragged band, some wielding tools, others armed with firearms, their faces contorted with suspicion, frustration, and menace. The forest seemed to press in all around him, the tangled canopy above blocking out the sky completely, leaving only the faint, dim glow of the moon, filtering through the thick foliage. He pushed forward relentlessly, heart pounding fiercely, until he reached a narrow, overgrown trail barely visible through the underbrush. At this point, the noise of the pursuit faded into muffled shouts, and the distant hum of engines gradually dying away. He paused carefully behind a dense thicket, trying to steady his trembling hands and listen intently to his surroundings. The chaos had decreased somewhat, but a lingering, unsettling sense of vulnerability still remained. Meanwhile, Elena was carefully moving along a different path, her thoughts racing as she tried to thoroughly assess their current precarious situation. They had successfully managed to disable some of the machinery, but at what significant cost? The forest, which previously had seemed unnervingly silent, now thrummed with the vibrations and aftermath of violence and destruction. Every snap of a twig and faint rustling of leaves felt amplified, serving as a stark reminder of just how fragile and delicate their resistance truly was. As Finn crouched behind the dense bushes, he examined the strange symbols they had uncovered earlier, mysterious markings carved into the trees, faint symbols painted on the rocks near the trail. Each symbol appeared to be a fragment of a larger enigmatic puzzle they had yet to fully understand. Did their act of sabotage truly matter in the grand scheme? Or had they only postponed the inevitable, giving the loggers more time to return and resume their destructive work? These pressing questions weighed heavily on him, yet beneath his doubt and uncertainty, a quiet but firm sense of resolve was beginning to take shape within him. They had taken a small yet meaningful stand against the relentless machinery of destruction that threatened their world. Suddenly, a faint, almost imperceptible glow caught his eye, a shimmering white feather, gently resting atop the moss-covered ground. He reached out with cautious fingers, trembling slightly, and carefully lifted it from the soft terrain. The feather's perfect whiteness appeared to pulse faintly, as if conveying a silent message, a fragile symbol of hope amid overwhelming chaos. As he gazed at it thoughtfully, a soft rustling sound behind him made him freeze instantly. Shadows flickered at the edge of the clearing more than one shadowy figure, silently observing from the darkness surrounding him. A sudden realization struck him sharply. They were not alone in this place. The forest had shifted from merely a silent witness to an active participant in this unfolding story. The presence of the Watchers, the mysterious symbols, and the delicate feather all hinted at a deeper, perhaps spiritual connection, maybe a guardian spirit or an ancient force defending the sacred place. The quiet strength of the woods, along with the symbols and the white wolf, these elements, had guided him here, and now, They appeared to affirm and strengthen his sense of purpose. He tightly clenched his fists, feeling the significant weight of this crucial moment settle deeply within him. The forest's silent resilience, the enigmatic symbols carved into trees, and the pristine white feather all served as powerful reminders that their fight was far from over. The threat still loomed dangerously nearby, yet so did the faint glimmer of hope shining through. Their small, seemingly modest actions held the potential to spark meaningful change. The woods had gradually embraced their presence, and perhaps in some quiet, unspoken way, they had begun to accept themselves anew. The shadows slowly receded into the night as Finn took a long, steady breath, clutching the feather with determination. The night stretched on, dense with uncertainty and unknowns, but also filled with the promise of renewal and rebirth. The struggle for the forest's very soul was just starting, and he felt prepared to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Morning light gently filtered through the thick canopy overhead, casting shifting dappled patterns onto the forest floor. A soft breeze stirred the leaves, carrying the fresh, crisp scent of damp earth mixed with pine, adding a sense of calm anticipation to the awakening woods. Finn remained perfectly still at the edge of a small clearing, his gaze fixed intently on the ground where a tiny, intricately carved stone lay nestled among fallen leaves, moss, and twigs. The sunlight filtered through the canopy overhead, catching on its polished surface and highlighting faint, mysterious runes etched along its sides, symbols he recognized from ancient stories and legends, yet had never seen so clearly before. His breathing slowed as he knelt cautiously, fingertips gently brushing the cool, smooth stone. It emanated a subtle warmth, almost as if it was alive, as though the forest itself had tenderly gifted it to him overnight. The fleeting image of the white wolf flashed briefly in his mind's eyes, calm and trusting, a silent gesture of reassurance. Its quiet departure had been seamless, slipping back into the shadows long before dawn. Clutching this mysterious artifact, Finn sensed an unspoken message, a deep connection that went beyond mere words and language. He hesitated for a moment, then slowly raised his gaze toward the awakening sun. The sky was awash with soft, warm hues of amber and pink, signaling the start of a new and promising day. For the first time in many long weeks, he felt a faint shimmer of peace within himself, a whisper of certainty that threaded gently through his lingering doubts and uncertainties. The surrounding forest seemed to breathe in a distinctly different manner, less tense, calmer, and more receptive to his presence. The usual oppressive silence had transformed into an inviting hush, as if the woods acknowledged his arrival and understood his purpose. Carefully and deliberately, he rose to his feet, clutching the intricately carved stone in his hands. His footsteps pressed softly into the lush, velvety moss beneath him as he moved quietly toward an ancient, towering oak tree nearby. Its gnarled, twisting branches reached outward in all directions, while its roots wove and twisted into the earth like the veins of some great ancient creature beneath the soil. Finn extended his hand and gently placed the carved stone at the very base of the massive tree. He paused for a moment to study the mysterious symbols inscribed on the surface again, tracing their intricate shapes with his eyes, attempting to decipher their hidden meaning and purpose. A gentle, refreshing breeze stirred the air around him, causing nearby leaves to flutter softly and revealing a faint shimmer on the ground just beside him. He looked down and noticed a trail of sparkling dust, shimmering in the dappled light. leading from the carved stone toward a small cluster of bushes nearby. Curiosity prickled anew within him, yet this sensation was now tempered by a deep sense of resolve and purpose, guiding his next move with quiet determination. He knelt down once more, carefully brushing aside twigs, fallen leaves, and bits of dirt to reveal a worn, weather-beaten wooden figurine, partially buried beneath the moist soil. Its features were roughly carved, but still conveyed a strong sense of emotion, a figure with outstretched arms, meticulously shaped with care and intent. An exhilarating shiver ran down his spine, becoming sharper and more intense. Someone, or perhaps some unknown force, had deliberately left these tokens, possibly the wolf itself, or a guardian protecting the forest's long-hidden secrets. The combination of the carved stone, the figurine, and the faint trail all seemed to form a silent message, beckoning him to continue forward, to trust in his intuition, and follow this trail further into the depths of the woods. Suddenly, his attention was caught by a subtle movement, a brief flicker of white at the edge of his peripheral vision. Instinctively, he turned his gaze, narrowing his eyes. At the boundary of the clearing, a figure appeared tall, cloaked in a tattered garment, with its face hidden within shifting shadows. However, the unmistakable gleam of white fur was evident. It was the wolf. It advanced slowly and purposefully, as if it had been waiting for him all along, eager to make its presence known. Finn cautiously took a tentative step forward, his instincts guiding him beyond any lingering hesitation. The wolf paused its movement, locking its intense eyes onto his in unspoken communication flowing silently between them. In that gaze, he perceived patience and deep trust, along with something even more meaningful, a recognition of his sincere commitment and an acknowledgement of the growing bond they shared, forged through quiet understanding and shared silence. The wolf then lowered its head slightly in a gentle, almost ceremonious gesture, nudging the carved stone with its gentle snout. This act was infused with reverence, carrying a sense of respect that felt almost ceremonial. Finn hesitated for a brief moment, then slowly extended his hand, letting his fingers gently brush against the soft fur of the animal, feeling the warmth radiating beneath its coarse coat. The surrounding forest seemed to hold its breath, every leaf and branch awaiting the next move in the silent exchange. Suddenly, a distant bird call shattered the stillness, a single, clear, melodious note reverberating through the dense trees. The wolf stepped back slightly, then turned its body partially to face the rising sun, as if signaling the dawn of something new. Finn followed its gaze upward, noticing how the morning light now appeared brighter and more vibrant, as if the entire forest was waking up alongside them. The shadows gradually receded, giving way to a renewed sense of clarity and hope. He took a deep, deliberate breath, filling his lungs with the cool, revitalizing air that seemed to sharpen his senses. For the very first time in a long, challenging period, a genuine sense of clarity settled deep within him, grounding his thoughts. The forest was no longer merely a confusing maze filled with fear. Instead, it transformed into a living, breathing entity that accepted him as part of its intricate web of life. He realized he was now an integral part of this ongoing cycle, this fragile yet essential balance of nature. He stood up straighter, his voice remaining calm and steady, despite the chaos of conflicting thoughts swirling inside him. "I will stay," he whispered softly, almost to himself, but with conviction. "I will protect what remains of this place. The words felt weighty, carrying both the gravity of responsibility and the necessity of hope and affirmation, born from a deep trust and a newfound understanding. The wolf paused, lingering for a moment longer in the shadows, then gracefully melted away into the darkness, leaving Finn alone in the quiet, peaceful clearing. The peaceful silence returned once more, calm and harmonious, yet imbued with a sense of deeper promise. The intricately carved stone rested steadily at the base of the ancient, majestic oak tree, serving as a quiet but enduring reminder of the unbreakable bond that had been sealed during this early dawn. As Finn turned back toward the dense forest, his lips subtly curled into a faint, contented smile. The uncertainty and unease that had previously haunted his mind now seemed to be gradually diminishing. The challenging path ahead might still be shrouded in shadows and lingering doubts, but he had come to realize that it was no longer truly adrift in doubt and confusion. The forest itself had bestowed upon him a powerful symbol of hope, renewal, and a newfound sense of purpose. He took a steady step forward, venturing deeper into the woods with conscious, deliberate movements. The tall ancient trees stood silent and unmoving around him, standing as silent witnesses to his decisive choice. Somewhere off in the distance, a cheerful bird resumed singing with a brighter and clearer tone than before, as if welcoming and approving his decision. The first light of dawn gradually strengthened, casting warm golden rays across the expansive landscape, illuminating everything in its glow. At that very moment, Finn fully realized this was not merely a new day. It marked the beginning of a profoundly different chapter in his life, a chapter grounded in trust, genuine connection, and the gentle, unwavering strength of the forest itself, which seemed to embrace him peacefully. He no longer felt lost or uncertain, but instead was prepared to listen carefully and to protect what had now become his true purpose and calling. The forest's ancient mysteries continued to linger, yet now they shimmered with a sense of hope and promise, rather than fear or dread. Clutched firmly in his palm, the carved stone felt like a precious gift, a solemn promise that he was exactly where he needed to be, becoming part of something much larger than himself. Moving deeper into the woods, every step he took was deliberate and filled with a newfound purpose. The tall trees stood as silent witnesses and protectors of his transformation, their branches whispering softly in the morning breeze. Somewhere in the distance, a songbird's melody echoed more clearly and brightly, as if welcoming him into this fresh and promising new chapter of his life. The early morning light bathed the entire landscape in a warm golden glow, illuminating the path ahead with clarity and hope. And as he pressed onward, Finn understood that this dawn represented not just the start of a new day, but the beginning of a reborn life, one built upon trust, genuine connection, and quiet, resilient strength. The forest had revealed its hidden secrets to him over time, and now he felt truly ready to listen carefully, to protect what remained, and to genuinely belong within its ancient embrace. The vast woodland stretched out infinitely before him, a dynamic mosaic alive with vibrant energy and continuous motion. The leaves shimmered with an intensified glow, reflecting the sunlight in brighter hues, while the gentle breeze carried a subtle yet soothing scent of damp earth, combined with hints of pine resin, heralding a quiet and profound rebirth. Finn moved forward with cautious steps, each movement deliberate and mindful, sensing the ground beneath him respond softly, as if the very soil recognized and welcomed his sincere efforts. The months of relentless hard work clearing away debris, planting new saplings, repairing the scars left by past destructive forces had not only transformed the physical landscape, but also profoundly changed his inner world. A new sense of steadiness and confidence settled within him, rooted firmly in observable signs of restoration and new life. Close by, Elena's hands were streaked with dirt from their efforts, her face illuminated gently by the soft glow of dawn. Their collaboration had been driven by both a pressing necessity and a deep sense of hope, each task motivated by their shared desire to restore and revive what had been lost. They had encountered setbacks along the way, unexpected storms, stubborn weeds, patches of resistant land that refused easy rebirth, but every obstacle only strengthened their resolve and dedication. Today, the landscape bore clear marks of their perseverance, trees sprouting fresh shoots from broken branches, wildflowers blooming vibrantly in patches that once appeared completely barren and lifeless. Finn's gaze shifted to a small, peaceful clearing where a cluster of newly sprouted young saplings had recently taken root and begun to grow. He paused momentarily, attentively observing the lush canopy above, where sunlight gently filtered through the leaves in a shimmering golden-green dance. The rhythmic rustling of branches seemed to whisper words of reassurance, as if the ancient forest itself acknowledged and silently approved of their diligent work. A faint breeze stirred the air around him, carrying the familiar sense of pine needles and damp earth, which further grounded him deeply in the present moment. Suddenly, a subtle movement caught his eye, a quick flash of silvery fur at the very edge of his peripheral vision. Instinctively, he tensed, recalling the white wolf's silent presence, which had become an unspoken guardian woven seamlessly into this landscape's fabric. He remembered the first time he saw it, distant at first, yet unwavering, with eyes that were calm and unblinking. Its appearance now was more sporadic, yet Finn felt its watchful gaze lingering nearby, as if the creature was silently assessing the progress of their efforts. He knelt beside a patch of freshly planted ferns, fingers gently brushing the cool, moist soil. This connection to the land was no longer an abstract concept. It had transformed into a living, breathing bond forged through patience, perseverance, and mutual understanding. Every seed he carefully planted and every obstacle he managed to overcome had gradually deepened his understanding that this forest was far more than just a simple refuge. It was an integral extension of his own being, a living testament to resilience, respect, and harmony with nature. Elena moved towards him quietly, her voice soft yet confident and unwavering. "Look at this, Finn. It's as if the forest is gradually waking up once again," she said, her eyes sparkling with a quiet, proud joy. "Together, we've managed to bring new life back into this place and restore its vitality." He nodded thoughtfully, a gentle smile appearing on his lips. "It's more than only that. We're actively helping it remember how to heal itself, how to truly thrive once more," he replied, his gaze fixed on the vibrant greenery surrounding them, the delicate but vital balance of the ecosystem now restored. "This forest is truly alive, fiercely resilient, and capable of remarkable renewal. Perhaps it has always been so." A gentle breeze picked up, carrying an almost unnoticeable sound, a faint whisper of ancient wisdom and timeless knowledge. Finn's gaze shifted toward the distant horizon, where, beyond the line of trees, a faint shimmering silvery shape moved with slow, deliberate grace. The white wolf's form was far away, merging effortlessly with the early morning landscape, illuminated by the dawn's soft light. Still, he felt its presence deeply, an unspoken acknowledgement of their shared accomplishment and progress. Their eyes briefly met, and Finn sensed a profound, almost mystical connection, as if the guardian spirit was silently granting its approval of the work they had done. He moved closer to a patch of lush ferns, kneeling gently to examine the moist, fertile soil beneath. His fingers traced the intricate roots, feeling the steady pulse of life flowing underground. The land's resilience was now bound to his own spirit. Each act of nurturing awakened a more profound understanding within him. This forest was no longer simply a place to restore, but now a true partner in renewal and rebirth. Its silent language of growth, healing, and rebirth resonated deeply within his soul, echoing the timeless cycles of nature. Elena's soothing voice broke the peaceful silence. "We've discovered so much," she said gently, "not only about the land itself, but also about ourselves deeply, about patience, hope, and understanding." Finn glanced around once more, taking in the scene, the lush, vibrant greenery surrounding them, the soft sunlight streaming gently through the dense canopy of leaves, and the faint, soothing rustling of distant branches. But beneath this calm exterior, a new level of awareness was beginning to emerge. The white wolf's sporadic appearances had gradually shifted from distant, fleeting glimpses to a more purposeful and deliberate presence. He sensed that the creature's role was subtly changing, perhaps now serving as a guiding spirit rather than merely a silent guardian. A slight movement at the corner of his vision caught his eye. The white wolf stepped into a clearer view, moving with a smooth, almost graceful elegance that conveyed a sense of intentionality and calm confidence. Its shimmering silver coat sparkled brightly in the soft morning light as the creature paused briefly, then continued its silent, deliberate patrol across the land, as if silently assessing the progress of the territory and its vigilant guardians. The wolf's steady, unblinking eyes briefly locked with Finn's, conveying a profound, unspoken message and affirmation that their efforts were in perfect harmony with the natural rhythm of the forest itself. Finn took a deep, steady breath, filling his lungs with the crisp, invigorating air that surrounded him. The lingering doubts that had once clouded his mind, the fear of failure, the uncertainty about what lay ahead, began to gradually dissolve. A renewed sense of purpose washed over him, bringing with it a clarity born from the profound harmony he now felt between himself, the land, and the unseen protector watching over everything. The forest was no longer an enigma to be unraveled, nor a threat to be feared. Instead, it had become a living partner whose resilience reflected his own inner strength. As they prepared to move forward together, a subtle tug at his consciousness emerged, a whisper of questions stirring in his mind. What challenges await us ahead? Will the delicate harmony we've found somehow endure through inevitable trials? And what is the true nature of the wolf silently observing from the shadows? These uncertainties no longer cast dark shadows over him, but instead ignited a quiet hope, a realization that their journey was ongoing, and that he was no longer truly alone in this quest. The villagers, sensing the subtle but undeniable change in their surroundings, approached cautiously, yet with a growing sense of cautious optimism. They kindly offered their tools, planted new seeds and shared words of encouragement, fully recognizing and affirming the profound transformation that had already begun. Finn met their sincere gazes with unwavering, steady confidence, nodding in quiet acknowledgement of their support. Their collective effort had successfully shifted the narrative from one of despair and loss to one of hope and renewal. The land itself was healing, and in tandem, so was he in spirit and strength. He turned once more toward the vast forest, observing how light and shadow delicately danced across the dense canopy above. The white wolf's figure lingered at the very edge of perception, standing as a powerful symbol of guardianship and enduring mystery. Finn understood deeply that its vital role was far from over, that its silent, watchful vigil would continue, guiding him through future uncertainties and challenges. The bond between them had grown stronger and more profound, rooted firmly in mutual respect, trust, and understanding. A gentle breeze swept softly through the trees, carrying with it a faint, almost inaudible whisper like a promise from the woods, a reassurance that protection, wisdom, and guidance would always persist. Finn closed his eyes briefly, feeling the cool, refreshing air against his face, allowing this calming sensation to settle deeply within him. This pivotal moment signified a true turning point. His entire journey was no longer solely focused on conquest or unraveling hidden secrets. Instead, it had shifted towards embracing resilience and trusting deeply in the quiet, unspoken language of nature, as well as recognizing the profound spiritual connection that now united him with the forest and its vigilant guardian. When he opened his eyes once more, a faint movement caught his attention, drawing him in. The white wolf re-entered his clearer field of vision, its sleek and powerful form moving gracefully and silently through the dense underbrush. It paused briefly, then resumed its silent patrol, leaving Finn with a renewed sense of calm and deep-seated certainty. The guardian was still watching, still present in the shadows, perhaps forever, or maybe just for this moment. He exhaled slowly, a gentle, knowing smile forming on his face. No matter what challenges lay ahead, he was confident he wouldn't face them alone. The land, the forest, and the silent protector would always stand by his side, guiding him and keeping watch over him. With that reassuring thought, a quiet confidence took root deep within his soul, born of hope, gratitude, and the unbreakable strength that resides within the natural world itself.